Every story has a beginning, and a part of what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tell a story. But it's very difficult to go back to the real beginning, because then we'll be here for all the weekend together. So I'm going to start with a specific point that is closer, which is 2010. I think that would help us manage our time a little bit better for the evening. In 2010, it was a year after Cost led, and there was a coordination work that had been going on between different initiatives in different countries to break the siege of Gaza, or challenge it at least, from the sea. There were successful trips to Gaza by sea earlier, up to 2008, but after that, Israel decided no more mercy, no more giving the chance even to small boats, and started confiscating boats that would try to break the blockade. So between 2009 and 2010, 5 initiatives got together with 6 boats. The most famous of them is the Mavi Marmara, the Turkish boat, and decided to up the effort and go together to break the blockade of Gaza, or challenge the blockade of Gaza. That evening, I was on my way to Ottawa to attend and help coordinate a demonstration the next morning against Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, who was visiting Ottawa. Listening to the news late at night, I heard that there were killings on the Mavi Marmara. And I said to myself, even Israel can't be that stupid. And I fell asleep with that belief in my head. I woke up in the morning after a short sleep, and it was a fact that Israel had attacked the Mavi Marmara and the other ships, and it was a fact that the killings did happen. And more and more we knew, the more and more we realized that some of those killings were in cold blood, and that the whole operation was a brutal attempted show of force. A few hours later, Benjamin Netanyahu cut short his visit to Canada without any word of condemnation or accusation or blame from the Canadian government, and went back to Israel. And our demonstration in Ottawa that day turned from being a demonstration against Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Canada to a demonstration to condemn what Israel had done and support the people of the Freedom Flotilla. But what's important here is that the media started asking, who are the Canadians that were on board of this Freedom Flotilla? What's the role of Canada in this Freedom Flotilla? And we came to know later the names of the 3 Canadians that were on the Mavi Marmara, one of whom is British Columbian Kevin Nish, and the other 2 actually are not. They split their time between Canada and outside Canada, so they don't have roots in the activist movement here. So basically, we can say that Canada did not participate, the Canadian civil society, did not participate in the first Freedom Flotilla in any meaningful manner. And at the same time, Canada as a government was participating in its support of Israel, and continues to do so in a very meaningful manner. We don't differ that Canada is no huge military power. That is a fact. But when our Prime Minister sets the stage in 2006 during the invasion of Lebanon, that Israel's response is a measured response, and when he sets the stage, being the first to act to cut all aid missions or relations with the Gaza Strip, before Israel even does it in 2007, these actions set a responsibility on the Canadian civil society to be at least at the same level of condemning its own government and of taking a position supporting the rights of the Palestinian people to counter the shameful position our Canadian government is taking. And thus, on these days between May 31st and June 1st up to June 5th or 6th, many activists from across Canada, literally from coast to coast, started to talk to each other spontaneously, and all agreed, before agreeing on a project, before agreeing on any details, that the next flotilla has to have strong Canadian presence in it. And we have to be there, we have to be vocal, and we have to be clear that to ourselves and to the world and to the Palestinian society and the people of Gaza that we don't agree with the position our government is taking, and we are ready to work very hard to make it known to the world that this is our position. And very quickly, the Canadian boat to Gaza as a concept was born. We just had the will that we will have a boat that carries Canada's name in the next flotilla. Doesn't matter when that flotilla is going to sail. It doesn't matter how hard it takes us to be able to get that and put that in place. It's going to be done. We managed in a few months to raise 50,000. None of us really remembers clearly how in another few months those under 100,000 rose all of a sudden to close to 300,000. It was really an act of faith that not only donations started coming, not only donations started coming that are not eligible to tax shelter, but also small communities from coast to coast were contacting us saying, we would like to hold a fundraiser for you and send you the money. Can you just send us some information about what you're doing? Freedom Flotilla 2 became a reality. 11 boats were, come late May, early June, 11 boats were there ready or most of them at least, ready to sail together in one flotilla, and only the nitty-gritty details were being discussed. Here the Tahrir was bought, repairs and modifications were done, it was ready in Crete waiting. The flotilla as a whole had its boats, the 11 boats, each in a separate port. 2 of them were in Turkey, the rest were in Greek ports, but different ports and different islands. Greece traditionally was, although it was one of the traditional strongest supporters, at least in the European context, of Palestinian rights, and the government in power was a theoretically left-leaning government, the surprise that happened was still shocking to all the organizers of all the boats of the flotilla. The first thing that happened even before that press conference is that 2 of the boats were sabotaged. The Sirsha, the Irish boat, was sabotaged in Turkey, and the Greek boat was sabotaged in Greece. And both boats were sabotaged by partial cutting in the shafts, and both were the same operation, very close to each other. If you look at the photos, and all that is available on the net. but the work continued and the boats that were ready were still going to leave. Yet the depth of the Israeli bribing and arm twisting to the Greek government was something that we did not anticipate. The Greek organizers did not anticipate that at the end of the day, after exhausting all the bureaucratic reasons why they are preventing the boats from leaving, the Greek foreign minister issued an official decree that boats leaving for Gaza will not be allowed to leave the Greek ports in conformance with, as he put it, with the position of the European Union. And that was really a strong blow to the flotilla, and more so to the people that were there waiting and extending their stay day after day, that after 2 weeks of waiting and trying, they get that reality as the final situation. The audacity of hope, despite that, the American boat tried to leave harbor, but was attacked or confronted by the Coast Guard right away, a few meters from shore, and brought back, and its captain was detained. On the Canadian boat, a vote was taken, and all those on board agreed to make this illegal departure from Greece without the official okay from the Greek government. So on July 4th, Suha from Ottawa and Michael from Australia went kayaking and couldn't move very fast, so they were stuck in front of the Greek Coast Guard boat. At the same time, our captain was fired, who is Greek, so that he doesn't get any responsibility in front of the Greek government, and a few people on board who had some experience in driving boats took the helm. And the Canadian boat to Gaza moved out of Agios Nicholas, heading as fast as it could towards international waters. The Greek Coast Guard managed to catch up with it, and they managed to force it to return to Agios Nicholas. At that point, it was clear that that phase of Freedom Flotilla 2, a chapter was closing at that point. What was learned from Greece is that despite the long history with Palestine, Greece is not currently a possible departure point for vessels challenging the blockades. And that a highly visible media campaign before departure makes it easier for Israel to outsource the blockade and have other countries do its enforcing. And that having international delegates and having strong media presence is really the strongest tool that we have to use. And we took the Tahrir out of Greece to an undisclosed location, and the decision was made at that point: if we want to sail, we have a balance between the strong PR, media, and public work and being able to sail. Was taken, we're going to try again, and we're going to try in a different way this time. We worked with the Irish, who their boat was already in Turkey and was repaired by that time, and we got to a decision that we are going to leave in the last week of October, first week of November, that we're not going to do any public work, that we're not going to talk about this in emails or by phone. We're going to restrict our conversations to Skype, and we are going to try we didn't even tell the people that were going to go on the boat. We had 30 people and about 10 journalists confirmed. We told them, go to Istanbul and wait for a phone call. Unfortunately, at that point, the Turkish authorities, we believe, had wind of what we were doing, but nothing official and nothing in the open. Everything was, as far as we're concerned, this is a private cruise that is going to go from Turkey to Rhodes, and it's a group of friends that are traveling together. Whether they believe it or not, that's another story. The medical supplies that we had, we tried to get them on the boat from the back door of the port, literally. Yet we do believe that somebody had wind of what was happening. And we need to look very, very closely at the relationship between the love-hate relationship between Turkey and Israel. And we need to understand the political maneuvering that the current Turkish government is doing between the Arab world, the Muslim world, and its relationship with NATO and Europe. So I personally don't take anything at face value or take it oversimplified. So there is something there that made Turkey insist to apply the strictest rules possible on the boats, and insist that since these are private boats, they have the right, according to their maritime code, to limit the number of passengers to 12. And this was a huge blow. This was a huge blow, having 37, 36 people and 10 journalists who had come from different places around the world, trusting you without asking questions, that they're going to get on the boat, and at the end of the day, you tell them, sorry, we'll have to cut down the numbers. And late in the afternoon of November 2nd, we filed the papers that we're going to Rhodes. We gave them their passports. We got our passports back, stamped, and the Tahrir moved. As it was moving out of the port, me and David unfurled the banner that is the freedom waves to Gaza. As the boat was already moving out, we head from Fitya to Rhodes, and when we got into international waters, we switched our course and we headed to Gaza. Now it was the challenge: will the Tahrir be able to cross the Mediterranean? Did we have? I mean, I don't know how many people were thinking about that. I personally was. We had a captain who had no crew. Literally, Michael and Majd Kayal from Palestine decided that they're ready to act as crew. So they were trained in the first 2 hours of the trip that they were going to navigate the boat during the night while George sleeps. It was really a model of cooperation, of self-sacrifice in a way that made it possible. And the Tahrir sailed in a straight line to Gaza for 1.5 days. In the night of the 3rd, we said, if we continue on this speed, we will enter the Israeli self-declared blockade zone in the middle of the night, and that's not advisable. And that's one of when the Mavi was attacked in the middle of the night, it was one of the reasons, in my opinion, that the situation got so out of hand. We communicated with the Sirsha, the Irish boat. We agreed that both of us will slow down to a slow enough speed that we will not get to the 50 nautical miles zone, 100 nautical miles zone within the night, but we will only enter it at 8, 9 in the morning, and that was what we did. The morning broke, we were still going up to 11 o'clock at noon. We were still going, no sign of being stopped, no sign of Israeli Navy, to the extent that some people started thinking, well, maybe we're going to make it, maybe they're going to let us through this time. But at the end of the day, no, long before the end of the day, within an hour, our communication started to become glitchy, and we started to lose connections, and then we started seeing big Israeli vessels or the big vessels on the radar, and it was clear that we're being surrounded by 11 or so different size pieces of the Israeli Navy. They came on board. The bow that they had made very wet, one of them slipped on it and fell. And they came into the wheel cabin. David said we shouldn't leave our captain alone with them, because they started pushing people out to the back of the boat when they got on board. So they tasered David at that point. They pulled us out. They took everything that was on us. As the sun went down, they said, "You all go inside the belly of the boat now." But one by one, they took us one by one down. Some roughing up happened, but no. I credit us with more, not giving them a reason to harm anybody, because we were mostly very solid, but at the same time not aggressive or not provoking in any manner. We were attacked by about 25 people. They were all masked with balaclavas on their faces, and they continued to be so throughout the whole exercise, except for their leader. He's the only one who uncovered his face. All the Mossad interrogations that we had, where they were mostly concentrating on how did you leave, who are your contacts with the Turkish authorities, who did you plan with, how did you do it, all that stuff was on and on and on. Again, that was, in my opinion, one of the most important achievements of, maybe not even in front of our own eyes, but them in front of their own eyes, to know that the myth is gone and it will never come back again. It's not possible to continue convincing the world that you're invincible. They took us to Ashdod. They took us off. We refused to get off the boat. Again, they carried some of us, dragged some of us, forced some of us, and roughed us up a little bit at that point as well. Searched all our luggage, whatever they allowed us to carry with us. Then they took us into interrogation rooms where they stripped us totally, all of us, searching for every memory chip, every piece of memory key or something that can have information on it for about 4 hours. That went on. Journalists or non-journalists alike, they kept going on and on till late at night doing that. And at the end of the day, it was amazing that both Casey of Al Jazeera and Lina of Al Masri Al-Yawm managed to smuggle chips with footage on them after all that. It's really amazing to me that this is possible, because I saw how they looked through my shirts and, checked every bit of cloth that they could. So I'm not going to disclose what I knew, how they smuggled it, because maybe they'll use it again. But at this point in time, we are reflecting on what's next, and we have the feeling that our work is not done. We can't stop here, but we are in a phase of reflection. One very important thing is liberation. Tahrir, the boat, is in Israel, and we have to expose what Israel is doing in front of the Canadian public, not only few selected audiences. There is no doubt in the minds of most experts that the blockade of Gaza is inhumane and illegal and useless as well and meaningless, and it's collective punishment, and it should end. So the Canadian government refusing to help in that is a shame that has to be exposed, and Israel has to be confronted. Our missions carried aid because aid is needed, but it was not about aid. It was about a blockade that should end. And as long as the blockade exists, there is a responsibility on us to continue working to make it end. And the people of Gaza have produced, no matter how primitive or how simple it is the right to be able to sail out with it and sell it. So this is what Jean Baird said in Israel 2 weeks ago. Israel has no greater friend in the world than Canada. Canada does not stand behind Israel Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel. That means Canada is holding the Tahrir. That means Canada is responsible for every action that Israel takes, and that goes both ways. If you're standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel, then I talk to you because you're responsible as my government to answer to me. And that is why we reach the point where we see them now proposing laws as Bill, again, that's only 2 days ago, Bill S7. And for some reason, I get the feeling that this is directed to me and some of my friends in particular. Other crimes that would fall under the law include leaving Canada to commit an offense for the benefit of a terrorist group. Well, committing an offense in the eyes of Israel, which Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with, is crossing the blockade or challenging the blockade. That's an offense. Going to Gaza can be interpreted by somebody as, although this is very clearly defined as a civilian-to-civilian project that has always been as such, and there was no contact with any government in any place to facilitate or work on that project, but can be, by some twisted mind, considered that this is aiding Hamas. And thus, this, we're getting into a fascist state here that we should not be quiet about. And this is the real story that we're at right now. So, when we ask you today to sign on our call out and demands that we are demanding, calling on the Canadian government to demonstrate its commitment to international law by providing all necessary assistance in the prompt recovery of the Tahrir, the medical aid, and all Canadian property on board that was seized violently during a lawful, peaceful voyage to Gaza. And 2, insisting that Israel meet its obligation under international law by facilitating the unimpeded movement of people and goods into and out of Gaza, including by sea, in compliance with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1860. Not one Canadian should hesitate to sign that call. We need to put pressure on that government, and that is not the end. That is only the beginning of what we need to do. The situation is here, is getting more and more difficult. Over there, it's getting more and more difficult. From the beginning, we said our work is happening on the waters of the Mediterranean, but its effect is expected more here than over there. And that's why we put this time and effort and work in support of the Palestinian people, in confronting Israeli hegemony, and also to make Canada take its place and act rightfully on the international community, not only when it comes to the Palestinians, but when it comes to any cause. Thank you very much.